The morning sun crept slowly over the rolling hills, spreading its golden warmth across the sleepy little town. The market street was already alive with the clatter of carts, the calls of vendors, and the rustle of baskets as townsfolk prepared for another bustling Saturday. Among them walked old Elias, the farmer everyone knew but few respected. His wide straw hat was tilted low to shield his eyes, and his boots carried the marks of years spent trudging through mud and soil. His shirt, though neatly tucked, bore faded colors and several hand-sewn patches that betrayed its age. His trousers hung loosely, cuffed at the bottom, and his calloused hands clutched a wicker basket filled with nothing extravagant, just a few eggs, some apples polished on his sleeve, and a small jar of golden honey. To most, Elias was just another poor farmer, one of those simple men who worked from dawn until dusk, earning barely enough to survive. As he made his way past the polished cars parked neatly along the street, a group of young men leaned against the cafe's glass windows, laughing between sips of espresso. "Look at him," one of them said loudly enough for Elias to hear. "Still living like it's the 1800s. Doesn't he know people actually care about appearances in this town?" Another chuckled, adding, "Maybe he's saving up for a new pair of boots, should only take him 20 more years." Their laughter rang out, sharp and careless. Nearby, a group of elegantly dressed women turned to look at Elias. Their manicured fingers covered painted lips as they whispered and giggled. One shook her head. "I don't know why he even bothers coming to the market here," she murmured. "Surely there's a cheaper place for people like him." Their words dripped with dismissal, the kind that cuts deeper than insults. Elias didn't slow his steps, nor did he react to the sting of their mockery. His eyes held the same calm they always did, a mixture of patience and quiet strength. He tipped his hat politely to the bakery owner who was setting out fresh loaves, and he smiled at a little girl clutching a loaf of bread almost as big as her arms. To those who mocked him, Elias was invisible, nothing more than a shabby figure moving through their polished world. But what they didn't know, what none of them even suspected, was that the man they ridiculed carried a fortune that dwarfed the wealth of everyone on that street combined. The land they admired in the valley, fertile, green, and stretching for miles, belonged to Elias. The factories that produced goods they shipped across the country had Elias as a silent partner. Even the hospital wing that had saved countless lives bore his hidden donation. Elias didn't wear wealth on his sleeve, because to him, wealth was never meant for display. His heart clung to simpler values, honesty, hard work, and the joy of giving back. While others measured their worth in jewels and cars, Elias measured his in acres of fertile earth, in families fed, in lives changed quietly and without applause. And so, while the townsfolk sneered at his patched shirt and mud-stained boots, Elias walked on with dignity, his true riches hidden in plain sight, waiting for the day when they would finally see the truth behind the man in simple clothes. That evening, the Grand Hotel in the heart of town glowed like a palace. Its tall windows shimmered with light, and the crystal chandeliers inside spilled brilliance across marble floors. Luxury cars lined the entrance, their polished surfaces reflecting the glow of golden lamps. Well-dressed men in tailored suits and women draped in satin gowns arrived in pairs, their laughter carrying into the night air. It was the night of the annual charity auction, a glamorous event where the wealthy gathered not only to donate but to show off their power and prestige. No one expected Elias to be there. A man in patched trousers and a sun-faded shirt had no place among pearls, diamonds, and tuxedos. Yet, as the chatter swelled and the auctioneer called everyone to their seats, the doors opened, and in walked the farmer. The moment was almost comical. His straw hat was tucked under his arm, his boots scuffed and heavy against the polished floors. Conversations faltered, and curious glances turned into smirks. Some chuckled outright. A banker leaned toward his wife and whispered, "Did he wander into the wrong place? Maybe he thought this was a town hall meeting." She laughed behind her jeweled hand. Others whispered nastier things, certain that Elias had no business being there. Elias, however, didn't flinch. He gave a polite nod to the greeter at the door, ignored the stares piercing into his back, and found an empty seat near the back of the hall. To him, the glamour and gossip meant little. He was here for a reason. The auction began with grand fanfare. A painting by a famous artist was presented first, the auctioneer's voice booming as bids climbed higher and higher. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Next came rare jewels, antique furniture, even an imported piano. Each item drew hands into the air, wealthy families competing as though victory itself carried more value than the prize. Elias sat quietly, his expression unreadable, while the people around him snuck glances and chuckled at his stillness. Then came the final listing, the crown jewel of the evening, a vast tract of fertile farmland just outside the city. The auctioneer's voice swelled with pride. "Ladies and gentlemen, this property is among the most valuable in the region. Rolling fields, abundant water, and endless potential. We begin the bidding at 2 million. Hands shot up instantly. The figures climbed rapidly, from 3 million to 4, then 5. The hall grew tense as the bidding slowed, two wealthy families locked in a silent battle. Finally, one bowed out, leaving the price at 5 million. The room hushed. That was when Elias lifted his hand. The auctioneer blinked, surprised, then cleared his throat. 5.5 million, from Mr. Elias. A ripple of shock moved through the hall. Some laughed nervously, others scoffed. "He's bluffing," someone whispered. "He doesn't have a cent to his name." Yet Elias remained calm, his eyes steady. When no one else raised their hand, the auctioneer's gavel came down with a sharp crack. "Sold," he declared. All eyes turned to Elias as he stood, walked forward, and signed the deed with a steady hand. Silence followed him as he left, the whispers of disbelief growing louder behind his back. The farmer had just bought the most valuable land in the region, and the town had no idea what that truly meant. The following morning, whispers spread through town like wildfire. In the cafe where only yesterday laughter had followed him, the same voices now trembled with disbelief. "Did you hear?" one man said, leaning over his coffee. "That old farmer bought the prime land at the auction, for 5.5 million. His companion nearly choked on his toast. "Impossible. He must have a backer. Someone with money fronting for him." But as the day went on, the truth began to unravel, and it was far more staggering than any of them had imagined. Reporters dug into public records, piecing together a puzzle no one had bothered to notice before. The land they thought belonged to different owners. Many of those deeds traced back to Elias, the lumber mill that had kept hundreds of families employed during hard times. Elias was the silent partner. Even the state-of-the-art hospital wing, which the mayor had proudly boasted was funded by anonymous donations, turned out to have been paid for entirely by Elias. The richest man in the country had been walking among them in patched clothes, carrying baskets of eggs, while they mocked him as a relic of the past. That afternoon, as Elias strolled through town to buy feed for his chickens, the people who had once ridiculed him now stared in awe. Some looked embarrassed, others ashamed. A few even attempted awkward greetings. "Morning, Elias," one of the young men from the cafe muttered, his voice tight with regret. The farmer only tipped his hat with the same warm smile he'd always given, as though he had never heard their laughter the day before. By evening, a small crowd gathered outside his modest farmhouse, hoping for answers. They expected him to reveal the secret to his wealth, to brag about his fortune, or at least scold them for their cruelty. Instead, Elias stepped onto his porch, leaned on the railing, and spoke softly. "I've worked the land since I was a boy," he said. "Every seed planted, every sunrise witnessed, every calloused hand, they were my fortune long before any bank account. Wealth isn't measured by what shines on your finger or what brand is stitched on your coat. It's measured by what you give, not what you keep." The crowd listened in silence, some with bowed heads. He continued, "The clothes I wear don't define me, just as the cars you drive don't define you. I chose a simple life because happiness is found in simplicity. And if I have wealth, I use it for good, not to be praised, but because it's the right thing to do." With that, Elias tipped his straw hat and turned back inside, leaving the townsfolk humbled and speechless. From that day forward, the mocking laughter ceased. People began to measure success a little differently, remembering the farmer who looked poor but gave more than anyone else. Elias remained the same, walking the streets in his patched shirt and worn boots, smiling at children and tipping his hat. Only now, everyone who saw him also saw the truth. The richest man in the country had always been rich, not in gold alone, but in heart.